Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to today's video. This episode will guide you through the issues of the Uncanny X-Men published by Marvel Comics in 1983. It's the double-sized 20th anniversary issue of the X-Men, number 175. It's a quiet day at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters in New York. Colossus, Kitty, Nightcrawler and Wolverine are tending to some woodcutting work on the estate, as Rogue and Storm are watching them do so. Rogue is asking what's bugging Aurora, and she tells her she's feeling less and less in contact with nature and the living things around her. She then asks Aurora if it wouldn't have been easier for her to just pulverize the tree with her immense power, but Aurora tells her that this is more fun and also functions as an opportunity to exercise their powers and teamwork. When Rogue wants to make a joke, she gets interrupted by a blinding light. As a matter of fact, they all do. It's immediately clear to all of them that the calmness of today is pretty much over. The flash of light doesn't last long, but the message it conveys lasts a whole lot longer. The giant firebird which appeared generally signifies the presence of the Phoenix Force. Storm knows this really well. It'll be a worry for later, because right now she can see someone above them who is falling down. As Rogue and her fly upwards towards the person falling down, Rogue says that this is very weird and asks Storm what's going on. Storm tells her she doesn't know yet, but is fearful of them finding out soon enough. Rogue recognizes the person she was able to catch as it's Scott Summers, or Cyclops, the former leader of the X-Men. Storm tells Kurt to take him to the infirmary for a checkup, but Scott says there's no time for that at all. He urgently warns his fellow X-Men that the Dark Phoenix has returned. That's when Professor Xavier pops up as an astral projection, and tells his X-Men and Cyclops to report to him in his study at once, and Storm tells him they are on their way. After putting on their uniforms for what might be their last battle, they gather before the man who brought them together and forced them into a team of unsung and often outlawed superheroes. Scott tells everyone present what had happened to him in the past couple of days. About his worries over Madelyne being the reincarnated Phoenix, about him putting his doubts behind him every time yet coming back stronger every time as well, about him being totally enamored by Madelyne, and about him asking Madelyne straight up if she's Jean reborn, and also about what happened after that. And the last thing he remembers is the Dark Phoenix standing over him laughing, until Rogue caught him in the air just now. Xavier asks Scott why the Phoenix would attack him, since she loved him. Why would she heal his fatal wound? He suggests to try and find her and find out her intentions and deal with them from there. He hooks himself up to the Cerebro console while Storm asks him if it wouldn't be wise for them to ask their friends for help. Xavier tells her that he is not entirely convinced yet of the supposed current threat. He sensed Jean's death years ago, but has not sensed a rebirth, which he thinks he should have. If the Phoenix truly does exist, his psi power should be able to find her, especially when he is amped up by Cerebro. As he starts to power up the computer, he immediately gets electrocuted. Rogue tears up the device to try and rescue him, as the other X-Men take a closer look at how he's doing, and Nightcrawler decides to teleport him to the infirmary, while he hopes the strain of teleporting Xavier along with him doesn't make things worse for Xavier. The rest of the X-Men investigate Cerebro and why its automatic safety systems did not prevent the massive feedback. Wolverine suspects sabotage, and after Kitty has taken a closer look at the settings, she finds out the settings had been reversed. Storm wonders how that's even possible, because they were here to see the professor's every move and there was no mistake made. Everything had been done correctly. That's when Cyclops tells them there's a simple explanation, as they see an image of the Phoenix rising out of him, telling them it's the end of the world and asking them if they all miss her. Storm immediately tries to attack her, but she gets dealt with instantly, returning her lightning right back at her. Colossus tells her to stop because she's killing Storm, but the Phoenix says that she isn't. Not yet. She first wants to play around a little bit, as she uses her telekinetic power against his organic metal body, and crushes him. She can tear planets apart, so this is very easy for her to do. Kitty doesn't like seeing Piotr being crushed like this at all, and she knows that the Phoenix is pure energy. So she hopes using her powers and phasing through her has the same short-circuiting effect as it has on electronic devices. But that is not the case at all. As a matter of fact, Phoenix short-circuits Kitty's nervous system. Then the Phoenix just slaps Lockheed away, as the creature is trying to attack her with a fire blast from his mouth, telling Kitty to teach him some manners or she'll barbecue him. Rogue attacks her and tells the Phoenix she doesn't like it when someone beats on her teammates, and all the Phoenix does is grab her by the throat and ask her, "Oh really?" while she looks her in the eye and throws her far away with great force. She asks Wolverine if he's planning on using his extended claws, but he says he isn't. She tells him that's a smart move, as she teleports out of there and tells him she'll have to run some errands, but it won't take her long. Storm asks her why he didn't fight her, and he tells her he didn't see much sense in doing so. He thinks it's better to gather their bearings and prepare themselves for a rematch. Storm tells Colossus to help carry Cyclops to the infirmary and tells Kitty to contact the Starjammers. She wants to warn Corsair and Lilandra about the Phoenix having returned. She also tells Wolverine to go look for Rogue, because she might have been hurt from the throw, since she's nowhere as invulnerable as she would like to think. Several minutes later, Kitty has been having a hard time establishing contact with the Starjammers. There seems to be some kind of interference, probably the Phoenix is doing. When they finally do get a response, they see Corsair having been better, telling them they were attacked by the Phoenix. All of the Starjammers and Lilandra are dead now. He sees her coming back and he tells the X-Men to tell Scott and Alex that he loves them, as he gets caught by an explosion, leaving all the X-Men shocked and awe, not being able to do anything about it but watching it unfold. Kitty asks how she could have done that to her own friends. She asks Storm who to call next. They call the Avengers for urgent help and Captain America answers the call. Storm tells him that the fate of the world, or all of creation rather, hangs in the balance. He tells her to give him all the details and he will summon the other Avengers. Storm starts telling him what the threat is and the ground begins to tremble. Rogue thinks it's an earthquake and Colossus tells the other X-Men to look back at the screen, as they see Captain America being attacked and the connection is being ended. Colossus asks Storm if she thinks it's the Phoenix, and she tells him to take a look outside. She tells him that for a creature that consumed the world with 5 billion innocent souls, destroying a city like New York is child's play, and she points out at the fiery bird outside through the window. A little bit later, downstairs in the infirmary, Storm tells Nightcrawler that Kitty had gained access to a military satellite, giving them an overview of New York City. There's nothing left. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange and even the Morlocks, all gone. There's no one left to help them. It's just them against the Phoenix. She asks Kurt how Cyclops and the Professor are doing, and he tells her he's managed to stabilize the Professor and that he should recover, if all goes normally from here on. Cyclops, however, seems to be in a worse state. Physically he's fine, but it seems as if the Phoenix has stripped him of the will to live. All they can do for now is pray for the better. On the inside of the psyche, Scott's soul is drifting away from his body. He's hearing Aurora and Kurt talk, and he can see them, but he can't interact with them. He can hear them say that his physical situation is bad, but he doesn't care. The part of him that truly matters, his soul, his essence, is intact and untouched. He sees the sadness in Aurora even though she tries to hide it, and she reminds him of himself. He wants to comfort her but isn't able to. She tells Kurt to come join her and get back to the other X-Men, because she needs him there. As they leave the room, Scott is being pulled in by white light. He knows he's dying. He can sense other souls around him, souls of the people that have gone before him. He's looking for one specific soul, the one soul he shared a psychic rapport with. He knows Jean is here, with him, and he can feel her. He thinks he spots her, but as he gets closer, it's not Jean at all. The spirit tells him to stop right there and to come no further. When he asks why not, she tells him this place is not for him. Not yet. He asks her who she is, and she tells him to look within himself. That's where he will find all the answers, and they will lead him to his heart's desire. As he drifts back down into darkness, he tries to resist. He does not want her to send him back and let him go. He catches the last glimpse of her face and hears her say farewell and realizes who she was. It was his mother. He wakes up, back in his body, realizing he was looking for a person whom he never accepted to be dead, even after all those years. He now knows that he has no choice but to fully accept the tragedy of Jean really being dead. But, he thinks, if that's truly the case, then who are they fighting right now? He thinks back to all that's happened and how it seems that he was never hurt, even though it sure felt like it. He comes to the realization that they must have been tricked in everything they have been experiencing. That there is no Phoenix that has come back at all. Everything else that has happened starts to fall into place. It's all one big trick. Scott figures that they're all being tricked by an enemy who seems to know a whole lot about the X-Men, playing with reality, bending it in such a way that he can make them believe whatever he wants. And it all seems to revolve around the Dark Phoenix. And that's when it hits him. He has to play this out well and catch him by surprise. He has to warn the other X-Men and deal with him properly. He hopes that Madelyne is alright. He has no idea what he's done to her. But it doesn't matter. He has to play this by the enemy's rules. Catch him and make him pay. After a couple of minutes, he enters the room where Storm and Colossus are, telling them he has found the answer and that they aren't fighting the Phoenix at all. Colossus responds to him in a weird way though. Storm starts attacking him with her elemental powers as if he is the villain, and he figures by this and by the way that Colossus reacted to him, they must see him in a different way. They too are being tricked at this very moment. He tries to warn them, but Colossus grabs him and slams him onto the floor, resulting in some of Scott's ribs snapping. Colossus isn't pulling his punches, at all, so this forces Scott to blast him full force and right in his face. Something he'd rather not do, but this situation leaves him no choice. Next he fires at Nightcrawler, expecting him to teleport out of the way and hit Wolverine who was standing behind him, while at the same time using Colossus' momentum to push him on top of both Rogue and Storm. He tries to predict Nightcrawler's attack and blasts his I-beam across the entire ceiling, catching him as he materializes. Scott then gets attacked by Lockheed and decides to run away because he doesn't know the extent of his powers, nor much about his durability. He turns the corner and feels his ribs are starting to act up, as he gets attacked by Kitty who faces through the walls and grabs him, calling him a lady. He maneuvers himself and Kitty in such a way that they fall down and by doing so catches Kitty off guard, which results in them facing right through the floor. Wolverine wonders what Kitty is trying to prove, attacking the Phoenix by herself like this, since they are all being tricked in thinking Cyclops is actually the Phoenix. Storm tells the X-Men to move to the Danger Room, since that's the next open space below the floor that Kitty phased through. She tells Nightcrawler to teleport ahead and prepare a nice welcome for the Phoenix there, and that against this foe, all their lives are expendable. Cyclops sees Nightcrawler materialize in the control booth, who's trying to reprogram the Danger Room safety settings. He takes care of Kitty in the meantime and lands on a pre-programmed cushion in the Danger Room. In the meantime, Nightcrawler gets electrocuted as he tries to control the terminal and the other X-Men enter the room. Cyclops uses his portable control device to run a different environment for the room, and Rogue and Storm immediately have to save Colossus and Wolverine, who are falling down. Rogue's confused at what just happened and Storm explains. Wolverine says this ain't Jean's style, because she could just as easily create illusions like this with her own telepathy. Storm thinks this is a ruse and tells Wolverine to go find her trail. Cyclops is hiding in the environment and is in full control of the room settings. Not only will this throw the X-Men off guard, but also their enemy. He realizes that Storm's made her mind up. She is convinced that they are facing the Phoenix. She has an attack first, ask questions later attitude. It's up to Cyclops to convince them of the truth, preferably before they blow his head off. Speaking of their enemy, he is currently watching all this unfold and is amazed at Cyclops' ingenuity, but he's still convinced that he'll have the upper hand. He introduces himself to Madelyne, who is currently wearing the uniform of the Dark Phoenix. She's confused where she is and wonders if she's crazy or dead, and if she has arrived in hell or no. He tells her his name is Jason Wingard, also known as Mastermind. He tells her he's a villain and with her help he will soon destroy his oldest and most hated foes, the X-Men. He then changes the surroundings with his illusion creating powers, and Madelyne asks what's happening. He explains to her that reality is what he chooses to make it, with everyone in it being merely pawns for his amusement. She asks him what this is all about, and he tells her he's in it for revenge. He tells her all about how he plans to exact that revenge, and that he's halfway there already, convincing the X-Men that the Dark Phoenix has returned in the form of Madelyne herself, and the only way to stop her is by killing her, and thereby destroying themselves. And once they have found out that they have killed an innocent woman, and not only that, but Cyclops' lover, they will not recover from that moral blow. Madelyne says that she won't let him, but Jason knows that she can stop him. He pours on the mental stress even more by making Madelyne doubt if all this is even real. The room she's in, the man she's speaking to, or that maybe she has gone insane. After having to deal with being the sole survivor, losing 378 passengers, in a plane crash she as the captain felt responsible for. She then tells him to shut up and how it was an accident, and it wasn't her fault that she alone survived. Wingard tells her that she would have been better off had she perished in a crash, considering what he has in store for her, and Madelyne asks him why he's after her. He says that when he sees her face, he sees the face of Jean Grey, the Phoenix, and his own damnation. When he was grooming her to join the Hellfire Club during her Dark Phoenix phase, she had lashed back at him, making him one with the cosmos, giving him an experience a mortal is not supposed to have. He tried to control her mind by playing her like a puppet on a string. He wanted to play the role of God, so she made him feel what it's like to be aware of everything in the universe. An experience which drove him insane. Eventually he did recover, but remained cursed with the memory of what he had been and could never be again. His life is now an unending torment from which even death will not be a release. He can't avenge himself on her, but he can make her friends and the people she loves, the X-Men, suffer in her place. He tells her he had been stalking the X-Men for months, as he creates illusions of him being Yabatone Yukusi and the priest aboard the airplane, planning and scheming in the background, manipulating events as they occurred and setting things in motion towards his desired ending. He also settled some unfinished business with some of his former colleagues from the Hellfire Club. He tells her he had planned to use whoever was Scott's girlfriend at the time for his ultimate deception, as he changes his appearance into Scott. Her resemblance of Jean Grey was a fortunate coincidence. It took little to convince Scott and the others that the Dark Phoenix had resurrected herself. He tells her she's a lovely creature, and it's almost a shame having to sacrifice her. They could have had a beautiful thing together. Madelyne can't believe her eyes, gets confused and asks Scott how he got here. He tells her by way of magic, and she tells him to stop joking. They're in terrible danger and a man called Mastermind is at the center of things. Jason, still posing as Scott, laughs, pulls her in close and kisses her. She can't help but return the passionate kiss until she sees the actual appearance of Jason Wingard. She pushes herself away from him in disgust, as he tells her that this is how he actually looks, but he prefers his more handsome appearance. But he tells her he could have made her love him in either form, regardless of his appearance. Madelyne ends up on the floor trying to come to terms with all she's just experienced. And in the meantime, the real Scott Summers is running for his life, trying to stay one step ahead of the rest of the X-Men, who are chasing him under the impression that he's actually the Dark Phoenix. He has one up on them though, since he's the one controlling the Danger Room's simulated and holographic environment. Regardless of that, he still has to stay sharp and not get overconfident. Wolverine and Colossus are close by, dead on his trail. Wolverine gets taken out first, since Scott regards him as the primary threat. With Wolverine temporarily taken out of the equation, Colossus continues chasing Cyclops, pushing the trees out of his way until Cyclops has lured him to the right spot where he ends up in quicksand. Everything is working out, just as he had hoped for. Up until now, that is, because it's coming down to the final part of his plan. As he's making his way to the exit of the Danger Room, he gets approached by both Storm and Rogue. He runs into a field of flowers wearing a breathing mask, and he can feel a wind rising behind him. He braces himself for Storm's first long-range attack in the form of a lightning bolt. As Storm fires her, she wonders why the Phoenix is choosing to run and stay on the ground, where she can fly instead. She's wondering if there's a game being played by her or if there's some other explanation to this. This hesitation ends up being a lucky one for Cyclops, as he's only barely able to jump out of the way. Scott figures the hesitation and the off-target attack by Storm shows she's starting to have doubts and that maybe she's starting to see through Wingard's deceptions. He fires his own attack at Storm and knocks her out cold, so she falls from the sky. Rogue rescues her and thinks it's a pity Aurora is not awake to see her do this. She lands herself and Storm both to the floor, right on the spot where Cyclops had hoped her to go to. As Rogue tells him it's time for the rematch, he fires his eye blast at the poppy flowers below her, releasing a knockout gas, as planned, because Scott knew that his eye beams would probably not be doing much against her near invulnerability. He picks up Rogue and throws her over his shoulder as he makes his way out of the Danger Room. He gives the final command on the computer systems on the wall, shutting down the surveillance systems of the mansion, so that Mastermind will not be able to watch along and will have no idea where he's going to. With the professor being unconscious in the infirmary, Rogue is the final ingredient to his plans. He's going to use her powers to temporarily absorb Professor X's mental powers. He's going to have to be careful, and hopes that Rogue will be able to handle the sudden influx of telepathy, and not fry everyone's minds. But this is his only hope. He removes her glove from her hand, wakes her up using a capsule of smelling salt and lays her hand on Charles's forehead. Rogue has no idea what's going on and goes through a roller coaster of emotions and thoughts. Other people's lives flooding her brain, and she doesn't seem to be able to handle it. But there's one voice sticking out of the chaos in her head. One voice trying to calm her down and guide her, showing her how to make sense out of this mess in her brain. Scott is using everything Professor Xavier has taught him over the years, and is using all the experiences from him having shared the psychic report with Jean. It's taking its toll on the both of them. The X-Men have caught up to them and have entered the infirmary as well. Wolverine tells Scott, who he still thinks is the Dark Phoenix, to let go of Rogue. Scott is trying to convince them that their minds are being played tricks on. If he was truly the Dark Phoenix, he wouldn't even have bothered running from them or talking to them. He tells them that he's given Rogue the mental powers of Xavier, and that he will open his mind to her and she can show them what's been happening all along. Rogue is very hesitant, fearful of making a mistake as she doesn't know what she's doing. She's afraid that she will not be able to show them the truth and make them believe what's really happening. He tells her to relax and to follow his lead. She's able to expand the mind link from her and Cyclops to the others, making them see that they're not really facing the Phoenix at all. Wolverine asks how they know this isn't a trick being pulled either, and he gets his answer, but not from Rogue, nor from Cyclops. The Phoenix appears right behind them, but Cyclops tells Mastermind that his tricks won't hurt them anymore. The game is over. He can only hurt them if they let him, but they won't allow him to. Not anymore. Scott does get hurt though, as Phoenix attacks once more. But Wolverine notices a gunshot, muffled by a silencer, so he's the only one that notices. Rogue reaches out to him telepathically and tells him that she doesn't register the Phoenix at all. And Wolverine has been noticing strange dead zones. He noticed it before when Xavier got electrocuted but couldn't put his finger on it. It all makes sense now though. He tells Storm that Mastermind is in the room with them, and Storm makes sure that he stays here. She then creates a vicious tempest that no one seems to be able to withstand. Colossus tells Kitty to leave the room, and even though she's reluctant to do so, she does. As she makes her way out, she wonders how this is helping their situation. Storm might be damaging the infirmary with this, and even though it might defeat Mastermind, they will probably need the infirmary to help out the injured team members after this ordeal is done. She wonders if Storm is now also under Mastermind's control. Storm herself is about to end the attack, as she feels this should be sufficient enough to have flushed out Wingard. She's not sure if she should be happy or sad being able to use her powers in such a furious manner. Doing things like this used to drain her all the way, but it seems to have become easier for her lately. Regardless though, she has been successful. Jason Wingard has been beaten, flushed out and drowned lying on the floor, not having expected Storm to be pulling off something like this. Wolverine is about to cut his head clean off with his claws, but Storm stops him. He thinks he deserves no less with what he has in store for him, but she says they are not executioners. Logan says she almost did execute him moments ago, but she says that it was in the heat of the battle. He's helpless now and it would be straight up murder if they killed him now, making them no better than he is. She says to find some sedative drugs to keep him under, until the professor finds a better way to permanently restrain him. Rogue notices her newly acquired psi powers are fading out, but can still sense some thoughts, specifically Storm's. She finds out that she was not only ready to stop Mastermind by killing him, but she would have sacrificed all of them if necessary as well. Kitty returns carrying an emergency medical kit, and Colossus tells her to go to Cyclops first since he just got shot. But Scott tells him he'll be fine, and asks if everyone else is doing alright. He looks around for Madelyne and finds her on the floor, lying face first in a pool of water, totally limp and not breathing. Fearful of losing yet again another love of his life, he tries to resuscitate her, trying his best to get her to come back to life, to return to him, just like he had done earlier for her. Eventually, he's successful in doing so. Sometime later, Scott is visiting Jean's ceremonial grave in the morning. He knows her remains are not down there, but scattered on the moon. He talks to her as if she's lying down there. He likes to think that she's buried there, close to her friends in this land that she loved. What they had was magic, and he will always cherish it, but it's now time for him to move on and create another kind of magic with Madelyne. A woman that does remind him of Jean, but he's glad in a way that they are not the same person. He hopes that she will understand, as he tells her goodbye and farewell and calls her his heart. Later that afternoon, there's a gathering of people at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. A gathering the like of which has rarely been seen. The X-Men, old ones and current ones, have joined Xavier's youngest students, the New Mutants, as well as their friends and relatives, because they have something to celebrate, namely the marriage of Scott Summers and Madelyne Pryor. Alex asks his older brother if he's nervous, and Scott tells him he's scared stiff, and asks him why he didn't just elope. But Alex tells him it's too late to back off now. The ceremony starts as he's being watched by Scott's grandparents and his father, who are all very happy, even though Corsair wishes his deceased wife could have witnessed his joyous day. From a distance, the ceremony is being watched by the Starjammers as well, Corsair's band of space pirates who are about to embark on new adventures soon. Mamselle Hepzibah just knows Christopher is thinking about his wife, and Raza tells her that fond memories of her does not mean Corsair loves her any less. Jode is curious if Scott is still planning on joining them when they leave the Earth. Wolverine tells Kitty he hopes she will have better luck this time around with being the maid of honor again. But all she can think about is how bad she feels for how Mariko treated Logan at their wedding ceremony just a couple of weeks ago. The two brothers joke around a bit as the music starts to play, heralding the bride to walk in. The ceremony proceeds, and Scott and Madelyne both pledge their wedding vows, as they're being watched by all their friends and family present. All kinds of emotions are running high, and finally, the groom kisses his bride. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, because that really helps me out in growing this channel and being able to produce more videos like this one. See you next episode.